Here's the main reason why most training is dull. You're probably already familiar with this graph. This is how skilled you are at something from beginner to expert, and this is how hard a task is from real easy to crazy hard. So if you're an expert and you're given a job that's too easy, it's boring. And if you're a total beginner and you're given something too difficult, you get anxious and frustrated. So as the learner is improving, we want to present them with harder and harder challenges so that they avoid these two pits and stay in this wonderful state of flow where the task is perfectly suited to them and they feel immersed in it and time just flies by. So that's the theory. But here's what happens in real life. You have to make one e-learning course for a bunch of different people. They're all starting at different levels and they might all struggle at different spots along the way. It makes no sense to make different programs for each person, so we typically run all these different people through the exact same experience, no matter where they are in their learning journey and what they need. Plus, we need to make sure everyone passes, so we bring down the difficulty to the lowest level possible. That makes it too easy for the average person and therefore boring. But game designers have a lot of tactics they use to present each player with the optimal level of challenge, no matter where the player is in their journey. And in this video, I'm going to show you how you can apply those tactics to your courses so that you always keep each learner in their Goldilocks zone of engagement without having to make different versions of each course. I'm going to demonstrate these tactics on two different training activities, one gamified and one not. The first one is this training game I built where you were given a city and you have to find it by clicking where you think it is. So when you get close enough, the city will light up. And as you can see, my fuel is going down, but I'm going to get a little bit of extra fuel whenever I find a city. The goal is to find as many cities as I can before my plane runs out of fuel. So that's my gamified activity. And my non-gamified one is a standard multiple choice quiz. So normally, if a task is too hard, we'll just change the task itself. That means if this question is too challenging, I can just come up with an easier question. In my geo game, if it's too hard to find a small town like Cheyenne, I'll just ask the player to find another city like New York or Los Angeles. This is the most obvious way to change difficulty, but there's three problems with this. Number one, it's the most labor-intensive method because you've got to come up with different content for each difficulty level. You've got to make up new questions. Plus, you can't really change difficulty gradually. Tasks are either easy or hard, and if you want a level in between, you have to create more content. And most importantly, if you change the content, you're changing what you teach. If my learning objective is that you know where Cheyenne is, I can't change the task to find New York because that's just not the same learning objective. And that's why whatever tactics we use, they have to work without affecting the content itself. So the first tactic is called rational game design, but you can apply it to non-gamified training. You start by making a list of all the elements that could make this task easier or harder. For example, in my geo game, right now I'm losing 1 unit of fuel every second. This game would be easier if the fuel went down more slowly and a lot harder if it went down more quickly. There's also how much fuel I earn every time I find a new city. Right now I'm getting 5 units, but that could easily be changed to 10 units, which would make the game easier. And right now, if I'm within this distance of the city, it lights up so I can just click on it. But if I want the game to be easier, I can just make this radius bigger or reduce it if I want to make it harder. So now all I have to do is change these numbers on the fly based on how well the learner is doing, and the game will automatically get harder or easier. So let's apply the same tactic to a multiple choice question. You can play with the number of decoys, so the more decoys you have, the harder the question gets. You can adjust the number of guesses you give the learner, or if it's a timed quiz, you can play with the amount of time you give them to answer the question. Because these are numbers, you have a lot finer control over each one of these parameters. Instead of 2 difficulty levels, you can now easily have 10. And when you control several of these parameters simultaneously, you can really fine-tune the difficulty with a lot of precision. In all of these cases, you're only adjusting a number and the content remains the same, so it's a lot less work for you. You don't have to come up with new questions or easier or harder tasks. Of course, in order to adjust these parameters to each learner, you have to know how well they're doing. There's a couple ways you can do that. If you already have good data on how well the average person performs on your task, you can just start everyone at the average level or slightly easier and adjust from there based on how quickly they improve. You can also put the learner through a pre-test at the beginning, and that result will determine what level you start them at. You can also just ask the learner where they'd like to start. There's nothing wrong with that. And if they choose wrong and it's too hard, you'll dynamically adjust the challenge to each person as they go through the training anyway. So maybe you keep a running tally of how well they've done on the last 5 questions they've been asked. So if they've gotten all 5, you can increase the difficulty, but if they're doing badly, you can reduce it. The next tactic is even easier to apply, and it's not only great at controlling difficulty, but learners go nuts for it. You simply give them a limited number of power-ups that they can use when they find a task too difficult. So for a multiple choice question, a power-up could be a hint, a do-over, or taking away a wrong answer. So either you give them a couple of these hints or do-overs right at the start, or you can use these power-ups as rewards that they earn when they complete some task, like maybe they do an optional lesson. That's entirely up to you. The exact power-up you provide depends on the exact nature of the task you're giving them and what would make that task easier. So for my geo game, a good power-up could be something that lets me skip a city. I don't know where Lincoln is, so let me skip that one and hopefully I'll get an easier city. I could also have something that gives me some extra fuel or temporarily makes my plane go faster. So power-ups are very useful, but beyond the difficulty thing, I have to tell you, to this day, I'm always stunned by how much they engage learners. Maybe it's because they get to hoard them and be strategic about when to use them, but to use them well, they have to think about what they know, what they don't know, and that's another way to get them engaging with your content, and it works really well. The right level of difficulty makes sure that each learner is given a task that they absolutely can overcome, but that's challenging enough that they have to apply themselves, and that leads to engagement. Overcoming a challenge that's not too easy makes you feel smart and makes you want to do another one. And if you want to know exactly how to turn a piece of content into an engaging series of challenges, check out the Effective Gamification Framework. This is my program where I personally coach you step by step through the process of gamification so that you know exactly how to engage your learners and get amazing results for your clients without guesswork. So check that out in the description below. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.